He had two families, but only one could survive after that started. Hi, my name is Trevor. I'm 27 years old, and for most of my life, I believe I came from an average, tight-knit family. My dad, Tom, was the guy everyone loved, the neighbour who helped you fix your car, the coach who pushed you just enough to win, and a father who never missed a birthday. At least, that's what I thought. Everything changed 3 months ago. I was helping my mom clean out the attic of our old house before it was sold. We were boxing up dusty old books, photos, and broken Christmas decorations when I found a small lock chest wedged behind a pile of insulation. It was heavy and cold to the touch, almost out of place among all the other junk. I expected old war medals or maybe some of my dad's childhood keepsakes. But inside were photos, and not of us but of them. Another woman. 3 kids. My dad smiling and holding a baby that wasn't me or my sister. I froze. At first, I convinced myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe he volunteered with a family in need. Maybe I don't know. My hands were shaking as I flipped through more pictures. There were Christmas cards signed Love Tom, Miranda, and the kids. Some of them were dated during the same years we took our own family photos. My stomach twisted. I didn't say anything to Mom at first. I wanted answers, not heartbreak. I took the chest home with me and spent the night scanning everything: photos, letters, receipts. It was undeniable. My father had another family. For at least 12 years. What haunted me the most wasn't just the betrayal, it was the look in his eyes in those pictures. The same warmth I thought was reserved for us. The exact same. I confronted him a week later. I waited until it was just the two of us sitting in the garage while he worked on the lawnmower like nothing had changed. I dropped the chest at his feet. He didn't even flinch. He just said, "You weren't supposed to find that." No apology. No denial. Just that one cold sentence. He told me to leave it alone. Said it was handled. I asked what that meant. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Sometimes things have to disappear so everything else can stay together." I didn't understand what he meant until later, much later. But I couldn't let it go. I started digging. I found out the woman, Miranda, had filed a missing persons report 6 years ago for her 3 children. All of them vanished without a trace. And my father was never questioned. I knew then this wasn't just about betrayal. There was something much darker. Something dangerous. And I had to find out the truth. No matter what it cost me, I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing my father's voice echo over and over, "Sometimes things have to disappear." The more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I actually knew about the man who raised me. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove straight to the county records office. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I asked for anything related to Miranda: marriage licenses, police reports, missing persons files. I got lucky. Or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. There was a report. Dated June 18th, 2019. 3 children, Noah 12, Leela 9, and baby Ezra 2. All vanished the same night. Miranda claimed her partner, Tom Holloway, same name as my father, was the last person to see them. But get this, she told the police they weren't just missing. She believed he took them. The case was closed 2 months later due to lack of evidence. No bodies. No sightings. No leads. Tom Holloway cooperated fully, left the state shortly after, and that was that. I stared at the paper for a long time. My father had raised a family. But how? And why? That evening, I waited until my mom left for a book club meeting and approached my dad again. This time, I brought the police report. I dropped it on the kitchen table. He knew this would come out eventually, I said. My voice was shaking. He didn't look up. "I told you not to dig," he muttered. "You think you're ready for the truth, Trevor. You're not. You never were. You killed them, didn't you?" I said. He finally looked up and smiled. Smiled. I protected them. I took a step back. What does that even mean? He stood slowly, walked toward the fridge, pulled out a beer. Took his time opening it. Then he looked at me with this twisted calm. Miranda was falling apart. Drugs, men, rage. She was going to destroy those kids. I gave them a way out. I saved them. I felt like throwing up. "Then where are they?" I asked. That's when he leaned in and whispered something I still haven't told anyone. Not even the police. He said, "They're safe, but you can't go looking. If you do, you'll never come back." I left the house that night and never looked back. But I couldn't stop thinking about those kids. About Miranda. About what the hell my father meant by safe. So I started tracking down Miranda. And when I found her, she was nothing like I expected. She wasn't broken. She was terrified. And the moment she opened the door and saw my face, she screamed and slammed it shut. She thought I was him. I stood there, stunned, on the porch, listening to the deadbolt click into place. Behind the door, I could hear her breathing hard, her muffled voice yelling something and probably calling for help. I raised my hands and backed away from the door. "Miranda, I'm not him, I'm his son." I shouted. Please, I just want to talk. Silence. Then, slowly, I heard the lock click again. The door cracked open, just an inch. One cautious green eye stared through the gap. Say that again, she said, voice hoarse. I'm his son, Trevor Holloway. I just found out about you and the kids. Another long pause. Then she opened the door wider. Her face was pale, thinner than in the pictures, but unmistakably her. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Or years. She pulled me inside quickly and slammed the door behind us. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. He'll know. He always knows. I looked around. Her home was small but clean, the blinds drawn tight. Security cameras in every corner. Extra locks on every window. I need answers, I said. Please, I don't want to hurt you. I need to know what happened. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. You have 5 minutes. I told her everything. The attic. The photos. The police file. What my father said about her protecting the kids. She laughed to a dry, bitter sound. Protecting? Is that what he calls it? Then she sat down on the couch and stared at the floor. Tom didn't just have 2 families. He had 2 faces, one for you, one for us. And the one we got, it was terrifying. I listened as she told me about the years of psychological gains, gaslighting, isolation. She said he convinced her she was going insane. Then, one night, she woke up and the kids were gone. No note. No goodbye. Just gone. I told the police, she said. They thought I was unstable, that I made it up. Tom smiled through the hall interview, said I was dangerous, that he feared for the children, and they believed him. But where are they now? I asked, leaning forward. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I've spent every day since that night looking. I've followed every lead. Hired private investigators. Nothing. It's like they vanished into thin air. I reached into my bag and pulled out a crumpled old photo I hadn't shown anyone yet. It was one I'd found tucked in the attic chest, behind the others it hidden. It was of a cabin, remote, surrounded by trees. On the back, in my father's handwriting, were the words, for emergencies only. Miranda's eyes widened. I've seen that cabin, she whispered. Once, years ago. It's real. My heart started pounding. Then maybe, I said, voice low, that's where they are. She nodded slowly. But if we go there, she said, we need to be ready for the worst, because if Tom finds out, he won't let us come back. We left the next morning before the sun came up. Miranda insisted we take her old Jeep instead of my car, fewer electronics. No GPS, harder to trace. She handed me a burner phone and made me leave mine behind. Paranoia? Maybe. But after everything I'd seen, it felt more like survival instinct. The drive took nearly 9 hours, winding through back roads and dense forest. The map I pieced together from receipts, old notes, and that cabin photo led us into a region of the Adirondacks I never even knew existed. No towns. No cell signal. Just endless pine trees and the sound of tires crunching gravel. Around 4 p.m., we reached the turnoff. A rusted chain blocked the path, but it had clearly been used. Fresh tire tracks. Miranda stepped out, cut the chain with bolt cutters she brought without asking me, and we continued down the narrow trail. Finally, the trees parted, and we saw it. The cabin. Exactly like the photo. It was old but well maintained. Too well. Freshly chopped wood stacked outside. A new satellite dish on the roof. Someone had been living here. We parked behind a thicket and approached on foot. I could barely breathe. My thoughts were racing. What if we found the kids? What if they weren't kids anymore? What if we found something worse? Miranda gripped my arm as we reached the back of the cabin. There was a small window cracked open. I peeked inside and saw her. Leila. She was older now, maybe 15 or 16, but it was her. Sitting at the table, reading a book. Fun. Like she was home. But she wasn't alone. A boy paced the room behind her. Ezra. He looked about 8 now. Healthy. Normal. Too normal. Then I saw the third figure. Noah. Or what used to be Noah. He stood motionless near the fireplace, staring directly at the window at me. I froze. He didn't blink. Didn't speak. Just stood there. Like he'd been waiting. Do you see them? Miranda whispered, breath shaky. I nodded slowly. They're alive, all 3. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She nearly collapsed, but I held her up. That's when we heard it. Footsteps. Behind us. I turned just in time to see my father step out from the shadows of the trees. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't angry. He was smiling. You couldn't help yourself, he said softly. Just like your mother. Miranda stepped forward, screaming, Where are my children? Why did you take them? He didn't answer her. Instead, he looked at me and said, They don't belong to either of you anymore, not after what I've done. My heart dropped. What did you do? He stepped closer. I raised them right, away from chaos. away from sin, and now they are pure. They belong to something greater now. Miranda pulled the pistol from her coat. I didn't even know she had it, and aimed it straight at his chest. But my father didn't flinch. He simply whispered, "It's already too late." Then everything went dark. I woke up on the cold floor of the cabin. My head throbbed. There was blood on my temple, and not a lot, but enough to make me dizzy when I sat up. My wrists were tied with plastic zip ties, the kind you could only snap if you had superhuman strength or a knife. I had neither. Miranda was gone. So was my father. The room was dim, lit only by a kerosene lantern in the corner. The kids were still there, or at least their bodies were. They stood perfectly still, like mannequins. Leela sat on the floor, humming quietly to herself. Ezra was drawing something over and over on a wood floor with chalk, a symbol I didn't recognize. And Noah was watching me, not blinking, not breathing. "Claire?" I croaked. "It's me, Trevor. Do you remember me?" She looked up slowly. Her eyes were vacant, like something inside her was switched off. "My name is Sarah," she said flatly. "What?" She shook her head. "Leela's not here anymore." Before I could respond, the door creaked open. My father stepped inside. He wasn't alone. 2 men followed him, tall, bold, wearing robes that looked almost ceremonial. Their faces were painted with the same symbol Ezra had drawn. "What the hell is this?" I growled. "What did you do to them?" My father crouched next to me. "They're free," he said softly. "Free from the sickness of this world. I brought them to the Order. I saved their souls, Trevor." I spat at his feet. "You brainwashed them. You stole their lives." He sighed. "You always see the surface. You never look deeper." One of the robed men stepped forward and showed me something, a small black book, leather-bound. It was handwritten in a shaky scroll. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was mine. I blinked, confused. "What is this?" My father grinned. "You've been here before, Trevor, years ago. You just don't remember." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" He nodded toward Noah. "He remembers. He was the first to speak your true name." I started shaking. "This is insane. I've never been here before. I never met them until last week." My father stepped back and opened the book. He read aloud. "First gate opens when blood returns to blood. When memory sleeps but truth remains." He looked at me with those cold, calm eyes. "You're not here to rescue them, Trevor," he said. "You were here to join them, just like before." Ezra stood and approached me holding a small blade. I kicked backward, trying to scramble away, but the bindings held. Leela or Sarah, or whatever she was now, began to chant. Low, repetitive, in a language I didn't understand. The room felt like it was shrinking. The shadows moved like they were alive. And Noah, always silent, finally opened his mouth. What he said made my skin crawl. "Welcome home, brother." My throat closed. "Brother?" I yanked at the plastic ties, my wrists burning. "You're wrong," I gasped. "I've never been here before. I'm not part of this." But Noah, or the thing wearing Noah's face, had just smiled. "You forgot, but your blood didn't." The chanting grew louder. Leela's voice turned deeper, inhuman, echoing around the cabin like the walls were alive. Ezra's blade glinted under the lantern light as he knelt beside me, calmly pressing it against my hand. "Stop!" I screamed. "Your children." But no one blinked. No hesitation. They moved like they'd done this before, like it was a ritual. My father stood in the corner, arms folded, watching proudly like he was witnessing a graduation ceremony. That's when Miranda's voice sliced through the chaos. Get away from him. The door exploded open. She was covered in blood, limping, gun in one hand, flare in the other. The red light filled the room and made the roadmen hiss and stumble back. One tried to rush her and she fired clean through the chest. They dropped. I saw my chance and rolled toward the corner of a workbench, grinding the zip ties against a jagged nail. It tore into my skin, but I didn't care. Within seconds, I was free. The chanting stopped. The flare smoke filled the cabin, and the kids began screaming shrill, tortured, not human screams. Miranda grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the door. "Run!" she shouted. We stumbled through the trees, branches slashing at our faces, the sounds behind us growing distant but not gone. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Whatever was in that cabin wasn't going to stop if we slowed down. We reached the jeep, Miranda already fumbling with the keys. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely help. As the engine roared to life, we saw him. My father. Standing at the tree line. Smiling. He didn't follow. Didn't chase. He just watched us drive away. We didn't stop until we hit the main road. And even then, we didn't speak. Hours passed in silence. I was shaking, still covered in blood, sweat, and whatever else had happened in that room. Finally, Miranda spoke. "That book, the handwriting, was it really yours?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to admit the truth, even to myself, because I remembered something. Just a flash. The bonfire in the woods. Me as a child, surrounded by figures in robes. My father's hand on my shoulder. I have been there, and I have forgotten. Miranda gripped the wheel tighter. What if this isn't over? I looked down at my hand, the one Ezra had nicked with the blade. The cut had already stabbed over, but something was wrong. The veins around it pulsed faintly. Doc. Alive. I met Miranda's eyes. It's not over, I whispered. Not even close. It's been 3 weeks since we escaped the cabin. 3 weeks of sleepless nights, motel hopping, twitching phones, looking over our shoulders. But it hasn't stopped. It's gotten worse. At first, it was just dreams. Flickers of memories I didn't recognize, of places I'd never been, people I didn't know. But they felt real. A boy holding my hand in a candlelit room. A woman whispering in my ear in that same dead language Leela was chanting. The symbols Ezra drew, I started sketching them in my sleep. I'd wake up and find them scrawled into the notepad by my bed, or worse, etched into my skin with whatever sharp object I had nearby. I haven't told Miranda everything. She's already unraveling. She doesn't eat. She stares out motel windows for hours. She still calls them her children, but I think deep down she knows that whatever's in those bodies isn't hers anymore. Yesterday, I checked the cut Ezra gave me. The veins around it have spread. They're black now, spiderwood across my forearm. It doesn't hurt, but sometimes it pulses. Like it's syncing with something. Or someone. This morning, Miranda was gone. No note. No phone. No sign of struggle. She just vanished. The only thing she left was a leather book. The one my father said I wrote. I almost didn't open it. But I had to know. The entries start 15 years ago. They're messy, childlike. At first are ramblings about the fire circle, or the voices in the trees, the second blood. Then they get darker. More detailed. Step-by-step instructions. Summoning rites. Rebirth rituals. The last page is dated 6 months ago. The first gate has opened. The vessel is complete. All that's left is to awaken the brother. There was a drawing beneath it, crude but unmistakable. It was me. I threw the book across the room. I don't know what I am anymore. I don't know if I'm even real in the way I thought I was. My childhood feels like a carefully stitched story, one my father gave me so I wouldn't remember who I used to be. But something inside me is waking up. I can feel it every time I close my eyes. And tonight, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. But I did. There was a pause on the line. Then a voice, high, childlike. Brother, it said. He forgot again. Static. Then another voice. Lower. Familiar. My father. It's time to come home. I dropped the phone. I smashed it with my heel. But the message was already inside me. Not in my head, in my blood. The black veins have reached my chest now. I think I know what happens when they reach my heart. This wasn't a rescue story. It was a return. And soon, I'll remember everything.